Hi, I'm Liam, and for those of you who don't know, Weezer is my favorite band. My whole life, I had heard the classic Weezer bangers that would play everywhere. At the Beechwood Elementary School barbecue, the DJ played Beverly Hills, and I danced my little heart out while eating some LaFleur's hot dogs. In 2007, I would bang my little head while singing Say It Ain't So on Rock Band on my sweet, white Xbox 360. As a very young child, I would sing along to Hash Pipe when it played on the radio, instead singing, I've got my hash brown, because I was a little kid. Weezer was a constant for me, ever present and ever rockin'. It wasn't until high school that I became a full-blown Weezer fan. I downloaded the Blue Album into my Nexus 5 music library, and it changed my life. It wasn't long before I downloaded Pinkerton. These albums spoke directly to me as the young, depressed weirdo I was. They were so sincere. The songs and styles were heartbreaking, triumphant, eclectic to say the least, and they drew me in like no other band ever had. The Green Album, while admittedly less heavy than I had come to expect, has still become a classic for me, and Maladroit was, in my opinion, the closest we've ever gotten to a follow-up to Pinkerton. This one has so many good singles and B-sides, and the guitar tone on this album is seriously tasty. Although my stomach was full of crunchy power pop, I hungered for more. And that is where I hit a roadblock that many Weezer fans have hit before. Make-believe. I'm not going to be that guy who goes into really great depth and detail about why I hate this album. I'm just going to say that it was a shock, to say the least. The first few songs were ones that I had become familiar with, Beverly Hills, Perfect Situation, This Is Such a Pity. These are songs that I had heard before. But, goddamn, everything else on that album was just so forgettable. But it happens, right? Not every album can be good. But then they made another. And another. How is it that 3 albums in a row can be so absolutely unremarkable? I think the answer is abundance, right? When I say these albums are unremarkable, I'm not saying that they're unlistenable. There are some gems on there, but they're thrown in with so much filler that they just get lost. If Weezer had just looked into it more and had taken every single solid song from all of these albums and just taken the time to release that as its own album, I think they could have had something really special. The next album, Hurley, was a step in the right direction. It had more rockin' tunes, it had less filler, but it was still far from being a fully consistent album. The same can be said for Everything Will Be Alright in the End. It's not the worst album, but also far from the best, and it made me wonder if Weezer could ever make a fully solid album again. Let's travel in time. The year was 2016. I had just started college, and my teenage angst was at an all-time high. I felt lost and confused in this big, scary world that I was thrusted into very forcefully. But there was one thing I was sure of. I fucking loved Weezer. Sure, they hadn't made anything like the Blue Album in a really long time. But their music still affected me as much as it ever did, if not more. It had been 2 years since Ube came out, and they were teasing a new album, the White Album. Now, I didn't know if I should be excited about this album. I didn't know if I should be scared because, I had just grown to be sort of meh about Weezer's material. But I think that I really just wanted to approach it optimistically, so I decided to be excited about it. And despite being excited, I never actually listened to any of the singles before the album dropped. And then it dropped. I will say that upon hearing the opening track, California Kids, I wept. This was Weezer, baby. Crunchy guitars, sincere delivery, catchy hooks, it was all there. And yes, the album does have some of the more pop-oriented songs, but honestly, I think that they hold their own, and it doesn't really seem rushed. It doesn't seem like filler. It's just a good album. And I'd say it's even in my top 4 Weezer albums, for sure. But then a year passed, and they released what I consider to be a totally unlistenable album. As with Make Believe, I'm not going to go into too much depth about what makes this album so bad, because it really comes down to my opinion, and opinions, as they say, are like assholes. But I will say that as far as I'm concerned, this album just didn't have to happen at all. There isn't one diamond in this rough piece of shit. And like, it kind of makes me sad to say that, because I love Weezer, and it's just like, I want there to be something of substance on this album, but there just isn't. And then they made another. And another. And now, there's another on the way. And none of them have even come close to that plateau that the White Album reached. The Black Album has some okay singles, like Zombie Bastards and High as a Kite. Those are kind of catchy, but aside from that, it's just meh. It's not to say that it's the worst album ever. It's definitely not as bad as Pacific Daydream, but it's still just so, like, underwhelming. I know what you might be thinking. Liam, if you say that Weezer is your favorite band, then why are you shitting on 90% of their discography? Well, that's the whole thing. I'm laying down the groundwork for what I think is a very courageous statement. Weezer needs to stop making so many albums. This isn't to say that they need to stop making albums altogether. I think they just need to refine the work that they're putting out. To this date, Weezer has 14 studio albums. And that's 14 albums in a 26-year career, which might sound like a lot, but in their 30-year career, Tool has put out 5 albums, all of which is a journey in their own right, all of which is practically perfect, very well written, very well thought out, and that is because Tool took the time to be thorough and not put out anything that they didn't see as perfect. I think that Weezer has the potential to be putting out heavy hitter after heavy hitter, but they're in a place in their career where they can afford to put out whatever they want to put out. There's also something to be said about what Weezer themselves want to do, and obviously that's important. Like, as artists, maybe they want to keep creating constantly and putting out this music constantly. But I'm speaking as a consumer, I'm speaking as a listener, and this is, as I've said before in this video, just my opinion. At the end of the day, I don't need to listen to the new albums. I don't need to buy the new albums. But I'll tell you what bothers me. In a live atmosphere, there are so many B-sides that I think would rock the house. But there are so many albums out there now that most of the time Weezer isn't going to choose those B-sides. They might throw in one or two every now and then, but realistically, they're just going to play the stuff on the last album that they put out that they're touring, and then they're going to play the fan favorites off of the Blue Album, off of Make Believe and Ratitude, anything that, you know, is considered like a Weezer banger. So for me personally, it makes it like hard for me to think about the idea of spending as much money on a ticket to see Weezer as it costs, because I just think that it's a less personal experience for me as the fan. So Weezer, if you're listening, please, for the love of God, wait. Take some time. Meditate some more. Go on a long vacation and drink margaritas in the ocean. Eat a banana. I'm not sure how Van Weezer is going to sound when it comes out. So far, it seems relatively promising, but please, take a break. You have material to tour forever. Take a page out of Billy Joel's book and just relax. And also, another small request. Play some B-sides. But Liam, what B-sides should they play? I'm glad no one asked. Stay tuned, because I'll be making a video talking about my dream Weezer concert. And don't get me wrong, that includes bangers. That includes A-sides. But those B-sides are really important, I think, for making a perfect Weezer concert. So yeah, stop making so many albums. Peace. Oh, and one last thing. I want to give a shout out to Crash Thompson, who made a really interesting series called The Rise and Fall of Weezer, where he sort of goes album by album up until, I think, Everything Will Be Alright in the end. And he goes into great depth on every album and really talks about them a lot. Talks about what makes them good or bad or whatever, in his opinion, obviously. So if you're more interested in that kind of material, go check that out. I'll leave a link in the description. And yeah, alright. Bye.